Hello, everyone. My name is Gregory Kluchetsky, and I'm a professor of practice at Virginia Tech. I've been teaching in the computer science department for about 15 years now, and my specialty is software engineering. I also have a lot of experience with online teaching. My students call me Dr. K.
And I'm Stephen Atkinson. I'm a professional web developer at Netflix. I've been a professional developer in Silicon Valley for nearly 20 years. My specialty is in back-end development, but I have been involved with all aspects of web development. My students call me Dr. A.
We co-teach a course in web application development at Virginia Tech. The course is centered around a semester-long project in which students build a mini e-commerce web application. In this video presentation, we're going to talk to you about how we revised the course project, not once, but twice in less than 3 years, to get it up to date with current industry practice. The course is a computer science course, but we teach it mainly to students in a Master of Information Technology program. The course is all online and asynchronous, and the students are typically working professionals from both technical and non-technical backgrounds. A basic course in object-oriented programming with Java is a prerequisite. A typical module in our web development course represents 1 week of the course. Assignments open up on Monday, and they're due the following Sunday. Since it's asynchronous, all lecture videos are pre-recorded. We do have a live Q&A session once a week, and if students cannot attend, they are required to view the recording online. Most interaction with students takes place on Piazza, which is a popular web-based Q&A platform.
Our paper is all about how we rewrote our semester-long project to make it more consistent with industry best practice. So let's take a look at an example course project. This is the professor's sample project. Each student will have their own unique design. The project is a mini e-commerce website for a bookstore. Every project has a welcome page, similar to the one you see here. The header has a category drop-down menu. When you hover over it, you see a list of categories. Selecting a category takes you to the category page. On the category page, the books in the selected category are displayed in a grid layout. When you click on an Add to Cart button, the book is added to the shopping cart. When you click on the shopping cart icon, you go to the cart page. The cart page shows you the books in your cart, along with the price and quantity of each book. When you click the Proceed to Checkout button, you go to the checkout page. The checkout page has a form that takes your information. When you fill out the form, the data gets verified on both the client side and the server side. When you click the Submit button, the form information and the card information is sent to the database. Finally, assuming the transaction is successful, a confirmation page is generated. As we mentioned before, every student's design will be different and uniquely their own. These are just a few examples of different welcome pages from some of the student projects in the past.
The original course was designed by me, Dr. K, about 4 years ago in 2016. I didn't know a lot about web development at that time, but I knew that I wanted the students to build a mini e-commerce website through the course of the semester. When I found the NetBeans e-commerce tutorial online, it checked a lot of boxes for me. It used Java technology, it provided reading material for the students, it had a project I could model the course project off of, and it was already divided into about a dozen subsections that I could turn into assignments for each week of the course. The main problem with the tutorial was that it was out of date. It was over 5 years old, it did not have a lot of JavaScript, and it used enterprise Java beans instead of a more popular framework like Spring. Nevertheless, it was a good start, so I centered the web development course around this tutorial. Dr. A was a guest lecturer for the first semester I taught the course, and I was already asking him questions about how to bring the implementation up to date. I liked his vision of how the project should change, but If I had to make those changes, it would take me many semesters. So I was extremely happy when Dr. Atkinson agreed to join the course and help me update the project's implementation. The major goal of the first rewrite was to get rid of the EJB framework. We decided that we did not want to just replace it with another framework like Spring. Instead, we wanted to implement a data access object pattern from scratch using Java and JDBC. We settled on a very distinct separation of responsibilities for the first rewrite. In retrospect, this separation ended up serving us very well. Dr. A, the professional developer, focused on updating the Affable Bean application from the tutorial. Then Dr. K, that's me, the professor, could use Dr. A's implementation as a guide to redesigning the course project, the bookstore. This table gives a rough overview of how much the individual modules and assignments changed after the first rewrite. Keep in mind that most modules are a week long, and all of the modules have an assignment that contributes to the overall project. Before the class began that second semester, we had about half of the revisions complete. Since I was working off Dr. A's implementation of the model project, creating project descriptions for the assignments was usually not too time-consuming. The difficulty came when I had to revise lecture videos, find new readings, and update quizzes or exams. And that is mostly what is reflected in those orange and red boxes. Sometimes I wanted to simplify some aspect of Dr. A's implementation. When this happened, Dr. A and I would meet and discuss whether simplifying was a good idea, and if so, how best to accomplish that. Since we had a strong separation of responsibilities, Dr. A could keep the more sophisticated implementation in the model project, and I could encourage students to use the simpler implementation in the course project. Here's a brief example of how that worked. In the transactions module, we switched from using EJB to a Java-based DAO pattern. This caused a lot of changes, but many of those changes were similar. For example, we had model classes for categories and we had model classes for books. We had create methods for customer records and we had create methods for order records. When I tried to implement this in the course project, I simply copied the relevant code from Dr. A's model project and did some renaming and cleaning up. Unfortunately, even though the code compiled, it just did not work. So Dr. A and I had a lengthy debugging session where we tracked down about a half a dozen tricky errors in the code. The session was so enlightening that we ended up assigning it to the students. We give students the code with errors already in it. We wait a couple of days, and then we debug a portion of that code in the Q&A session. In the end of semester evaluations, there are always a few students who single out that debugging session as one of the most valuable portions of the course. That's why in the first revision, the most important thing that we got right was to maintain a clear distinction between Dr. A's responsibilities with the model project and my responsibilities with the course project. We wanted the implementations of the model project and the course project to be similar, but not the same. That way, we could show students the code for the model project without having to worry that they would simply copy that code into the course project. There were other things we did well also, but maintaining this distinction was key. As far as where we had problems, it mostly had to do with the NetBeans e-commerce tutorial. It was an excellent, professionally written tutorial, and for that reason, it was difficult to abandon it completely. Since there were portions of the tutorial that were still relevant to the project, we assigned those readings to the students. In retrospect, this just ended up confusing a lot of students because they felt like they were working with two different technologies. There were other areas where we had problems as well, but this was the major one.
The second rewrite was completely motivated by what you see here, JavaScript and more JavaScript. In particular, front-end JavaScript's frameworks like React, Angular, and Vue. Since about 2010, more developers have been using front-end JavaScript frameworks, Many educators, including us before the second rewrite, were using projects based on the old model of web development that relies more on server-side processing. In late 2019, less than 3 years after the first major rewrite, we decided that we could not wait any longer to move to a JavaScript framework. We did not want to be doing major rewrites every 2 years, but we felt that moving to a JavaScript framework would help us maintain the project better in the future. So we chose Vue.js as the framework that we used, partly because it had a reputation for being easy to learn, and partly because I had experience with it where I work. We also wanted the front end to access data in the back end via a REST API, and we wanted to continue to use Java for back-end development. We had great success in the first project with keeping our responsibilities separate, so we continued with that strategy. Regarding Vue integration, something interesting happened here, and we ended up revising our initial strategy. I had already rewritten substantial portions of the model project in which Vue components were integrated into the original servlets and JSP structure. I was comfortable doing this because I'd already have been doing this type of integration where I work. Unfortunately, Dr. K was having lots of trouble finding good documentation for the students on how to accomplish this integration. The excellent online readings and tutorials on Vue.js all assumed that you were creating a web application from scratch using the Vue paradigm. The more we tried to integrate the two different technologies, Vue and servlets, the more we would have to explain to the students in video lectures and Q&A sessions how that integration worked. On the other hand, switching completely over to the Vue paradigm had its drawbacks as well, because it meant a bigger overall change to the project. After a few lengthy discussions, we felt that the simpler path would be to completely embrace the Vue paradigm. In retrospect, this turned out to be the right decision. Switching over to a JavaScript framework paradigm from the server-centric paradigm was a lot of work. You can see in this table that many modules were significantly modified. What saved us a lot more work was that we could assign the high-quality readings and video tutorials on Vue that already existed on the web. That's why we feel that the most important thing we did right in this revision by far was to commit to the paradigm for the JavaScript framework that we were using. But this had its downside as well because there were so many aspects of the project that we had to change. There were times during that first semester after the revision when we felt that we were just barely ahead of the students with what we had to teach.
Here are a few key takeaways from our experience. First, if you have a project-based course like we do, we strongly recommend having both a model project and a course project. When you update your course, update the model project first, and then change the course project. Focus on industry best practice for the model project and focus on understandability for the course project.
Second, commit to the technologies you plan to use. In a fast-paced field like web development, you want to leverage as many online resources as you can. Online readings and tutorials are typically focused on a single technology. Furthermore, the more you try to mix competing technologies, the more you are going to confuse your students. Finally, the JavaScript revolution has arrived. JavaScript frameworks have become the norm in industry, and the faster you make a transition to one of the main frameworks, the easier it will be to keep up with future changes.
That's it for this short video presentation on industrializing your web application development project. We wanted to remind you that there is a lot more information in our paper, and we hope that this will inspire you to read it if you haven't done so already. I'm Dr. K.
And I'm Dr. A. We'd like to thank ASEE and all of its members,
and we'd like to thank you for listening.